All right, so we just covered the vision that was given to Esdras. Now we're going to cover the interpretation. Chapter 12, verse 10. And he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. But it was not expounded unto him, therefore now declare I it unto thee. Okay? Behold, the days come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be feared above all kingdoms that were before it. In the same shall 12 kings reign, one after another. So the days are going to come where there's going to be a kingdom that's going to rise, and it's going to be feared above all kingdoms that were before it. In the same will 12 kings reign, one after another. Okay? Whereof the second shall begin to reign, and shall have more time than any of the 12. Okay? All right. Now you'll notice, what do you mean? What about all that stuff about the eagle coming up from the sea and ruling and speaking to its feathers? Why haven't we covered that yet? Well, I told you the interpretation is not given in chronological order. It's important that you notice that, because if you don't, you're going to get all mixed up in an understanding what this is talking about. Okay? But there's going to rise up a kingdom. This is part of the interpretation. There will rise up a kingdom that will be greater than all nations before it. In the same will 12 kings reign, one after another. And when the second begins to reign, it will have more time than any of the 12. Notice it says it will have more time than any of the 12. It doesn't say no one will, after you, will reign to the half. The interpretation does not say that. That was only something that a power in the vision said. That is not what the interpretation says. And you'll understand why this is important here in a little bit. Okay? All right, now, let's keep going. Sorry, I should have read verse 16 with that. It says, whereof and as the second shall begin to reign, and shall have more time than any of the 12, and this do the 12 wings signify which thou sawest. Okay. Verse 17. As for the voice which thou heardest speak, and that thou sawest not go out from the heads, but from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation, that after the time of that kingdom there shall arise great strivings, and it shall stand in peril of falling. Nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to his beginning. Okay? When does that take place? Well, if you remember in the vision, eagle rises up from the sea, right? 12 feathered wings, all this stuff. Heads are asleep. The eagle rules upon the earth with much oppression, and everything's subject to her, right? And then, after this period where it's ruling and everything's subject to her, no one speaks against her, she rises up on her talons and speaks to her feathers. Okay? So here it says, and as for the voice which thou heardest speak, that thou sawest not go out from the heads from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation, that after the time of that kingdom, after the time of, see, that kingdom had a time when it reigned and ruled the earth, and everything was subject to her, and no one spake against her, no, not one creature upon the earth. And after the time of that kingdom, there would arise great strivings, and it should stand in peril of falling. Nevertheless, it should not then fall, but shall be restored again to its beginning. So it was going to have its time that it ruled and reigned, and no one opposed her. Pretty much the dominant power, right? And then after that kingdom's time, it was going to be in peril of falling, but it didn't fall. It remained. Yet it fell enough that something about it needed to be restored. It lost something. After it ruled and reigned, it came to a period where it was in danger of being annihilated, but it wasn't annihilated, but something about it took damage, okay? It was wounded, and it needed to be healed. It needed to be restored again to its beginning, like it says in verse 18. All right. So just know that that's what that means. When the eagle's speaking to its feathers, okay, that's referring to a time when it's in danger of falling, and then it gets restored. Okay, and then this instruction to the feathers is, hey, watch not all at once, but watch by course. Okay, all right. So let's keep going. Verse 19, and whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation. I told you they were under feathers, right? Okay, so there they are. They're under feathers. Whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation, that in him there shall arise 8 kings, whose time shall be but small, and their years swift. Okay? So when the feathers are short and small, it says their times would be small, their years would go by swiftly, but years, right? It's swift, but that doesn't mean months or weeks. Years. Okay. Their years swift, 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching, 4 shall be kept unto their end begin to approach, but 2 shall be kept unto the end. Okay? So 2 of them shall perish. So remember those 8 feathers that we talked about in the vision? 2 of them shall perish. 2 of them were gobbled up by the eagle, right? Okay, that's pretty simple. The middle time approaching, 4 shall be kept unto their end, begin to approach, which, the remaining four, remember? There was the remaining 4, because 2 of them appeared no more, and then there was 6 left, and then 2 divided themselves from the 6, and there was 4 that remained, right? And here it says, and 4 shall be kept begin to their end begin to approach. So that's the 4. And then it says, but 2 shall be kept unto their end. And we haven't read the verse yet, but this is the 2 that divide themselves from the 6 and rule after the lion speaks to the eagle. Now, we've not read that verse yet. We're getting to it. It's a couple verses down here. Okay. So that's what the 8 contrary feathers are about there. Okay. Verse 22, and whereas thou sawest 3 heads resting, this is the interpretation. This is very important. It says, in his last days shall the Most High raise up 3 kingdoms and renew many things therein, and they shall have dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein with much oppression, above all those that were before them. Therefore are they called the heads of the eagle. Okay? So the 3 heads are 3 kingdoms. In his last days shall the Most High raise up 3 kingdoms, who will renew many things, and have the dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein with much oppression, above all those that were before them. That it's going to excel all those that were before them, exceed. And then it says, therefore they are called the heads of the eagle. That'll be important when we get to identifying by name who these powers are. Heads of the eagle. All right, verse 25. For these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, the eagle's wickedness, heads of the eagle. It says, for these are they, it's talking about the head still, these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, and that shall finish his last end. And whereas thou sawest that the great head appeared no more, it signifies that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. Okay, wait a second. The heads are kingdoms. How can a kingdom die on its bed? Well, it can't. But every kingdom has a king. Okay? And once that middle head finishes the wickedness of the eagle, that king of that kingdom will die upon his bed, but not peacefully. It says with pain. Okay? It's almost like a retributive judgment of God for finishing the wickedness of the eagle. Okay? All right, now. Verse 27, for the 2 that remain, the 2 heads, because the middle one, appeared no more. For the 2 that remain shall be slain with the sword. For the sword of the one shall devour the other, but at the last he shall fall through the sword himself. Verse 29, and whereas thou sawest 2 feathers under the wings passing over the head that is on the right side, these are those 2 that divided themselves from the 6. I told you about this verse several times now. Verse 29, and whereas thou sawest 2 feathers under the wings passing over the head that is on the right, it signifies that these are they whom the highest has kept unto their end. This is the small kingdom and full of trouble, as thou sawest. This goes right along where it says there in verse 2 of chapter 12, and the 2 went unto it and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small and full of uproar. That's after the lion speaks to the eagle. Okay? So that's what that's all about. Okay? Verse 30, it signifieth that these are they whom the highest has kept unto their end, and this is a small kingdom and full of trouble, as thou sawest. Verse 31, and the lion whom thou sawest rising up out of the wood, and roaring, and speaking to the eagle, and rebuking her for her unrighteousness, with all the words which thou hast heard, this is the anointed which the highest has kept for them, and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove them, and shall upbraid them with their cruelty. For he shall set them before him alive in judgment, and shall rebuke them, and correct them. For the rest of my people shall he deliver with mercy, those that have been preserved upon my borders, and he shall make them joyful until the coming of the day of judgment, where I have spoken unto thee from the beginning. This is the dream that thou sawest, and these are the interpretations. Thou only hast been meet to know this secret of the highest, therefore write all these things that thou hast seen in a book, and hide them, and teach them to the wise of the people, whose hearts thou knowest may comprehend and keep these secrets. So that's the interpretation. An instruction was given to the prophet. Write all these things that thou hast seen in a book, and hide them, and teach them to the wise of the people, whose hearts thou knowest may comprehend and keep these secrets. It's not for everybody. It calls them secrets. It says, teach it to the wise. It says, hide these things you've seen in a book. Okay? It's not for everybody to know. Okay? But if you're watching this, I'm hoping that you're the wise, and that my little intro will have pushed away anybody that, is not wise. So that's the interpretation. Now we are going to put the vision and the interpretation together. We're going to cover it in chronological order, and I am going to identify for you by name the powers that are brought to view in this prophecy. So first, I just want to show you this little picture that I drew here. Hope you can see it there well. I know it's backwards, but just to give you an idea of what's taking place here. Eagle, 3 heads, head in the middle is greater. They're all sleeping. The winds of the air are blowing upon her. And then you have the 12 feathers, the under feathers, and it comes up out of the sea and reigns over the whole earth. So just a little picture image to help maybe you, some people are visual, and that's cool. All right, so we're going to come back with the identification by name, the powers in this prophecy, and it's going to be where everything comes together. We'll see you in a moment.